Right. Thank you so much, Mario, and thank you to the team at litcareers.com for having me. Um, and folks, I'll give you a quick brief background of who I am and what I do before we get started. So, a little quick story about me. I love communication and I love working with students. I also do a lot of corporate work with your favorite tech companies. I live out here in Silicon Valley. I'm sure everybody that's on the call, you may be spread out, but here we are in California, Silicon Valley, and I love to help people be successful in their careers. So, what we're going to talk about today is the challenge of getting your foot in the door or getting the next step on the ladder in the times we live in right now, in the economy that we have right now. So, bear with me as I share my screen here and we get sort of underway. Uh, Really, what I wanted to ask everybody is if you think about it, what is one of your great challenges today? If you want to just think about it for a second, and you think about your career, you think about your goals, you think about what you're trying to achieve, and what roadblocks might be coming along the way for you. What are those? Hold on to that thought as we get into today's discussion. So, first things first, I didn't want to belabor the point too much about who I am and what I do, but I'll just leave this briefly on the screen. Obviously, I've worked with a lot of different companies, but also with your Ivy Leagues and with your public universities. But really, aside from all that, aside from being an author, I love coaching and teaching. And I invite you after this session to hang back in the Q&A, and certainly you're welcome to drop questions in the chat along the way. My special offer to those of you that are joining us, and I'll repeat this at the end, is and I'll drop the information in the chat. Feel free to email me, visit my website, look me up on LinkedIn, and the first 20 people to do so, to email me, you will be invited and eligible for a 20-minute complimentary session with me, and we can talk about your career goals, your communication goals, and perhaps even leadership development. So, back to where we were. What is it that you are facing today? If you're like some of the clients or like my MBA students that I work with, it's some combination of what you see here. You're not getting the amount of credit you deserve, or at least what you feel you deserve. Possibly on a concrete level, you're not really getting that advancement. You're not getting the kudos. Maybe not even noticed. Nobody knows how hard you're working. And maybe if you're out there in the job market, pushing your resume, your CV out and about, and you're not getting that response, it feels like you're just pushing things into the void. It can be very dispiriting. But we'll share some strategies about that today. And most perhaps hurtful is the feeling as a result of all this that we're not being respected or given our due. Now, why could this be happening? Well, think about some common conceptions or misconceptions that people have. These are real comments that actual clients have spoken in sessions with me, or students have spoken with me, and it's repeated over the decades that I've been doing this. So, very commonly, people will say, "My work speaks for itself." Perhaps it should. Why should I say so much and, toot my own horn? It seems like I'm, just speaking from ego. It doesn't feel right. I can respect that. Sometimes people say, I don't like making small talk, right? I just want to get to the point, talk about the work, keep it really direct and short, respectful. Lastly, some people might say, all that matters are my numbers. I deliver every quarter. What more do you want from me? All very valid thoughts. But may I offer an alternate perspective on all these three? So you might say, you might say, instead of my work speaking for itself, which it may or may not, what does speak for itself is your work story, which we'll practice how to do those in today's chat. instead of small talk, what if we thought about it as relationship building, right? Creating a rapport with someone using just your good old everyday human communication. And finally, yes, results do matter, but we have to give the people reasons why they matter, and we have to know the why behind it. Do you see how we're adding a layer and a dimension to all these very simple, basic things that, gives them that added value? That's really what today's talk is about, is how to position yourself as not just a competent professional, but a truly valuable asset to your company, to your organization. So let's talk about the first topic of the day, which is strategic communication. What does that mean? Well, communication, before we get into what's on your slide here, communication, as I love to say, and is the title of my book, communication simply means talking together, right? And certainly talking can be replaced by writing and other media of communication. But the key word in there is together, right? And so when we add the additional layer of strategic communication, what are we doing? We are thinking of the impact that our words and our actions and our other ways of communicating, the impact that it will have, thinking in advance, planning it to the extent that we get a more desirable result. Part one of that is our ethos. This is an old Greek word. Um, it means credibility. So how you're able to really reach out to people and make them see who you are and respect who you are, and in a simple word, that you know what you're talking about. Part two is what we call logos. Logos comes from the Greek word for knowledge. Your ideas must be interesting and impactful and genuine and well thought out, right? And finally comes pathos. Are people listening? Are we speaking in a way that people want to keep listening to us? Think about how that works, and we will practice that, not to worry. So let's start with the first of those three, which is credibility, ethos. How do we maximize it, and how do we really have that kind of impact on our audience? So the first thing, remember, is first impression is last impression, right? We've all heard that saying before. I don't know if we should take it literally, but it certainly leaves a very strong indent, right? Hence the word impression, on how people see us when they meet us going forward. So think about how we frame that brief conversation, that 1 or 2 minutes. Hi, my name is so and so, right? So just like at the top of the session, uh, Mario introduced me, and then I introduce myself. Think about what you might add when you say hello to someone for the first time. Perhaps you start with a headline, right? I'm a director at Meta and I have 100 reports in the division overseeing Instagram, right? Very strong, punchy, succinct, solid. You might throw in a number. I have 25 years of work experience in this space and I built this product, that product, that product, right? That dovetails perfectly into step three, which is your accomplishments, your accolades, right? Our team just rolled out the beta test for the new Facebook Marketplace app, right? So now you're already showing people what you're made of, that you're not just, a random person. You really get things done. And finally, set yourself apart through your knowledge, right? I love working on AI ML tools, artificial intelligence, machine learning tools to drive innovation and user experience. So take a step back and look at this. In 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, which you can say in, I said 2 minutes, but you could say this in less than 30 seconds. And you could leave a very strong impact with the people that you are speaking to. So after today's call, definitely think about what is your version of this example intro and how can you leave that strong initial impact. So think about these words. Maybe, if, kind of, I hope, sort of, could, right? I had fun adding the tone in there. But you get the point. Don't these words feature so much in our vocabulary when we're just talking, be it at work, be in our personal life? What do you think it does? It softens everything you're saying. And when we do that, we lose credibility and power. These words, by the way, they're what we call qualifiers because it shows you're not sure about the thing you're discussing. The number one thing people care about time and time again is who knows what they're really talking about and do they have a plan? And can we sign off on it? You got to show people that you really know what you're talking about. You've done your homework. And using words like this does not help, right? So now we come to part two of strategic communication, which is the logos, the impactful ideas that we're able to present. So one way we can do this is think about your typical answer that you give in a work meeting. Well, this happened, and then, well, then we were talking about this, and then so and so said this, and so said that. And about 18 minutes later, the person that is at the across the table from you still hasn't gotten to their point. Isn't that infuriating? Right? Nobody has that kind of time. And the worst part is nobody understood the message. So, some of you might be familiar with this format, STAR method. STAR stands for, as it says here, situation, task, action, and result, right? Four steps. So you take that entire jumble of, stream of consciousness response to a question, and you streamline it into a clear-cut four-sentence or six-sentence response. First, give us the context. What's going on? Why are we here? What's the problem? Next, task. Give us the goal, the objective. What is the key problem to be solved? But most importantly, why is it important that we solve it? And how urgent is it? Create that sense of urgency so people really listen to you. Number three is action. Okay. What is it that needs to be done and what's your plan? Lay it out like a timeline. First, we'll do this, then we'll do this, finally, we'll do that. If you can think of different people doing different things and they have different roles to play, more, or even better. Finally, results. Give people hard numbers, the metrics by which you measured your success. What did we learn? Maybe we had some success, maybe some failure. I'll give you a simple example. It doesn't have to be complicated, right? You could just do something as simple as this, right? And this is based on true story. So everything's working fine late on a Friday, but then the dashboard was a mess, right? Data, your numbers, it's not working. The software isn't working. It just keeps rebooting. It's a real problem, right? So you give accolades to a particular team member, in this case, Jess, who jumped on it immediately. Okay, we create that sense of urgency and we cleaned it up over the weekend, made sure we were ready to go on Monday. So we got all the actions in, right? And the project stayed perfectly on track. You have your result. So you can see how, as wide as that model is, it can be really summarized very briefly into just, three or four sentences. It's simple, it's memorable, it's easy to follow, gets the point across. So already you can see how we can put our ideas more credibly, more clearly, more logically. And now let's think about how we can connect better with the audience. So, stories, such as the one we just mentioned, they engage us, right? And they're really the best kind of format for us to work with. But there's also more to it, which is the tone and the way we talk. So, this is absolutely a true story because you couldn't make this up. I have a young 10-year-old nephew, okay? And I was on FaceTime, um, breakfast, and he was not eating his breakfast. He'd rather play with his toys and just watch TV or something. And I could see my cousin, who was also on the call, just at her wit's end, okay? And so he could hear me because he's on the call, and I'm like, John, you haven't had your oatmeal. Okay, and then I put a deeper tone. John, I'd like you to eat your oatmeal now, please. Okay. Started to move towards the bowl, sat down, he's staring at me, and I said, Come on. I know you can do this. And that's when he started to eat his breakfast. Why does this work? It's a combination of things. The deeper tone shows authority. I'm varying my tone, which is making it musical, right? So people want to listen. There's a command in there, an instruction, and also an encouragement just to get people across the finishing line. So you can see how different tonal tactics on my part here got the job done. You can do the same. So put it all together, your credibility, the storytelling, and the engagement through our tone, the way we talk, really can make you much more effective, be it in your job interviews, be it in when your performance reviews come up, whatever kind of career move you're planning, you'll be able to put your best foot forward. But speaking of careers, there's a couple more pieces to it, and one of them is networking. Here's the crazy part. Everyone is terrified of networking. And it's such a challenge, right? Because it feels fake. So how can we be authentic? How can we be real doing networking? So I'll tell you a very quick story. I call it my $8 salad story. This happened a year and a half ago, where I was speaking with someone at a very interesting company. I'd been introduced through a friend, and he agreed to a lunch meeting. Okay. And it was one of those sandwich and salad places. So I was getting a sandwich. The person I was meeting was getting a salad. And without asking, without saying a word, I just paid for his food as well with mine. It's an $8 salad. It's okay. He was shocked because he didn't expect it. And he thanked me 15 times. I'm only exaggerating slightly. And so a seed was planted, and he was very attentive throughout the lunch meeting. And a few months later, the call came to me, and I was able to get some good work from that company. The point, though, is it was an unexpected gesture where I didn't really expect anything in return, but I just put it out there, right? And it was a way of me showing that I appreciated the other person, okay? And it didn't cost me very much. So just keep your own version of this $8 salad idea in mind. What is a small gesture you can do using this persuasion principle of reciprocity? Because now the other person feels burdened. Oh no, I owe this person a good deed or a favor. Maybe down the road, when they have a need, they think of you. So very simply, to talk more about how I actually presented myself, just like we talked. You got to tell your personal story, your brand story, right? It's not just what you've done, but what you care about. And that's where you come in with the personal connection. So earlier on, I was just sharing with the Lit Careers team, like I love education. I really work with not just big companies, which is great. I love the Fortune 500, Big Four, yes, glitzy and glamorous. But I really, really, by the end of it, care about your average everyday student who's struggling, maybe not putting three meals on the table, their family is, and yet they want to get a good education. And I try to go the extra mile for that person. And that's my way of showing when I introduce myself to someone that I am more than just your consultant or your executive coach or your professor. I'm someone who cares about people learning and people succeeding, right? Then you go to your credibility. We've talked about that already. But last but not least is your value. In that one-on-one, whoever you're speaking with, let's say it's a job interview, what do you bring to the table? Why are you the person that this company should hire? Why are you the best person or the best fit, maybe, for them? That's a question we all have to ask and come up with an answer for. So that's where this last piece comes in. So let's say you've done all the other stuff. You've learned how to speak. You've learned how to make that authentic connection with people, show your credibility. And you even found a way to tell good stories and connect. Now there's a deal in the offing, right? Potential job, potential promotion. Perhaps you have a business and you're trying to get a new client or customer. Now we have to talk the details. And this is where, shockingly, a lot of things go awry. Very quickly, side story, I dabbled in recruiting a while back. So I've been on both sides of the table, right? Trying to get clientele, trying to get a job, but also trying to hire people. And it's very interesting the things that will happen, the things that will derail something, and the things that will make a deal actually happen. And I'll tell a couple quick stories, but let's get through the sort of negotiation tips here. It's worth remembering what the word negotiation comes from. I'm going off memory here, but negotiation is ultimately you're trying to find, quite literally, minimal distance between yourself and the other. You're trying to find common ground. So, how can we do that effectively? I've tried to boil it down to the shortest list possible. So, to that end, the first thing is be honest with yourself. Is this a good fit or are you pushing it? Obviously, if you're looking for a job, you would love the first job offer to be a good fit. But is it? Because you got to ask yourself, 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, will you be happy there? Will you want to stay there? Will they want to keep you there? Right? Be very honest with yourself and really think that part through. And if it's good for you, then we have to convince them that it'll be good for them too. But right fit should be your first factor. The second thing is consider the whole deal. So obviously there's things like base compensation, maybe stock options, maybe health benefits. You get the picture, right? And I remember being in this frustrating back and forth with someone who was a very strong candidate, but was balking at the low base pay. And I was trying to show him, like, it was a sales role. I said, just look at the potential commissions you could earn, over a period of time. And but because he was so stuck on base pay, the deal just fell apart despite it being such a good fit. Um, which was sad. So, but we of course went with a different candidate who was a good fit. But my point being, you know, someone getting stuck on one aspect of it found the whole deal untenable. So really ask yourself, does the deal as a whole work for me, or am I getting too stuck on one item? The third thing, and this is really important, is let's say you're going down the contract line by line. Okay. You talk about, let's say, base comp, you talk about time off, you talk about benefits. Once we've covered these three things, and then you're ready to go to topic four, it's not good form to go back to a previous topic again, because now it shows that it impinges upon the trust in the conversation, right? So it's really important, and this is sourced from a Harvard Business Review article, so take it for what it's worth, that, trust is the biggest factor in negotiation. And so revisiting old topics is a great way to reduce trust. Number four, let's say you have a deal breaker. Let's say, like the person I was referring to, for whom base pay below a certain point simply wasn't going to work for them. And that's okay. Then the suggestion is to lead with it. If one factor by itself is important enough that it will make or break the whole deal for you, make it the first thing you talk about. And if we get past it, well, then the rest of the conversation should just get better from there. Finally, think long term, right? I can't say with full certainty that this works, right? But I have seen it work sometimes where you come in at a lower comp and you come in at a lower comp and you sort of have the handshake deal that over a period of time you will get a chance to bump up 5%, 8%, 10%, depending upon what you negotiated, right? It's a uh, it's a thought, it's a way of trying to close a deal when the other person has sort of given you their closing point. And really, it's a chance for you to do a gut check that what are my options? Is this the only job I have in front of me or the only offer I have in front of me? And if it is, well, try to get the best deal you can get. And maybe that's the lesson is try to get the best deal that you can get and be realistic about what we have on the table at any given point in time. So, so folks, we've kind of covered a lot of ground, right? We talked about how to be strategic in our communication, be a powerful, persuasive storyteller, use things like your tone of voice, your smart ideas, to parlay into the actual work, which is selling yourself and making sure people respect you, look up to you, and want to give you more responsibility. That parlays into your skills of being a great networker, somebody who enjoys it. Remember, small talk isn't small talk, it's relationship building at a superficial level. Hopefully, you're able to make it a deeper level over time. And finally, persuasive negotiation. When it comes down to the nitty gritty, the last line of it, the last step of it, really ask yourself what you're willing to give up, what's a deal breaker. Look at the big picture. And it comes down to really what is it as a relationship that you're looking for? So that's everything, folks, that I wanted to share with you. I wanted to share that, despite perhaps any rejections or difficulties, or like the title of the seminar says, being ghosted that you may have faced in the recent past, I would encourage you to keep trying. Things, go in ebbs and flows. And what I would say is, I'm here for you. If you want someone to speak with, to improve your communication skills, to get a better sense of the lay of the land, and have a strategic improvement to your career, I'm more than happy to be of help. So, with that, folks, I'll pause and certainly stay on the line for your questions and dropping into the chat uh, my various links. The first link is my calendar booking link. Feel free to use that to book a complimentary call with me so we can go over your goals, your difficulties, and maybe suggest some solutions. Also on there is my email. So you can feel free to just shoot me a question if it's a quick question. Third link is my website. So come take a look. And then finally, of course, feel free to sign up with me or become a contact of mine on LinkedIn. I really do look forward to hearing from you. I'm happy to pause right here, folks, and take any questions.
Hello all. If you have any questions, now's the perfect time to go ahead and ask. You can drop them in the chat. If you want to go ahead and ask via video or audio, you can also unmute yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you all to unmute. Um, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question. I have a great question for Arjun. Arjun, you talked about one of the first slides is mastering the 1 minute personal introduction. How careful do you have to be to not maybe oversell? I think that's always, I think there's a lot of people who tend to like oversell and maybe talk themselves up too much, and that could be a huge turnoff. So how do you get in there and hit the button and get people
Right.
interested without sounding too, just,
This is true.
yeah,
It is such a personal thing, and you
yeah,
definitely want to read the room. Depending on whom you're speaking with, you can tone it down a bit and be more on the humble side.
yeah,
If, for example, let's say like I was working with someone who worked with Google, right?
yeah,
So if you've worked with Google, that's really all you need to say, and you can just say, I've worked, for 10 years with Google. It's been a lot of fun. And that might be enough. But if you've sort of built something together and you're more early on in your career, then you do have to talk it up a little bit. And then also, if context changes, now you're working for Google, this guy's worked for Google, that guy's worked for Netflix. So now you do have to talk yourself up because the competition increase, right?
yeah,
So I would go back to, and again, folks, feel free to email me for a copy of those slides. I'll happy to email them back to you if you drop them a line. But you can just stick to literally what I put on the
right,
slide and say those 4 to 6 sentences, and that'll be more than enough.
Perfect.
People do need a number in there, like how
Yeah.
many years of experience, how many
Yeah.
people
The basics. Yeah.
are on your team. If you handle a big budget, right? Like say, let's say you're in finance, you say I manage assets worth $2 million.
Yeah.
That's solid, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I see a question in the chat
From
from
Evelyn.
Evelyn Liu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So question is, how do you find out if the people you're talking to are actually understanding what you're trying to
Ah, good
communicate? That's a
question.
really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, what we try and do is we do what's called perception checking. Okay. So perception checking is instead of saying something like what did do you have any questions, you can, if you're feeling doubtful, you can say um, do you want to know more about blah, blah, and blah, and give them a specific question regarding something you said. And and you can say, does this help you make a decision? Supposing it's a sales call, right? You're trying to sell your business, sell your candidacy. You can say, do you have any questions for me? What can I say to you to improve my case with you? So asking a specific question and sort of forcing them to give you that specific response, that's a great way to go about it.
Okay. Any other questions? Arjun,
Most
I have
welcome.
one more question for you in the meantime, real
Please,
quick. You said you
for
have
sure.
a little bit of a background in recruitment. So
Yeah.
what are some of the ways that you can, I mean, there's a lot of questions that people don't want to answer, and this is brought up in the previous session as well. Like, how do you answer those questions that you just kind of feel are a little bit inauthentic, and why you want to work here, and things like that? So how do you get yourself kind of excited about answering that kind of silly question? Why do you want to work somewhere when you just want to get paid?
It's so true.
So
It's
how do
so
you,
true. Yeah. No, I think read the vibe, to put it simply. Like if this person is interviewing you and they
yeah,
want you to tell the song and dance story, then
exactly.
play along, play
Correct.
along.
Correct. Okay.
There's a concept in communication called mirroring. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
Mm.
the most basic version of it is like if someone is sitting across from you, like in person,
Hmm.
and they're leaning back in their chair, you lean back in your chair.
Right.
If they're leaning forward, you lean forward, right? If they're smiling, you smile, right?
Right.
And so the same is true, I think, for the level of communication. If they're being a little bit, made up and dare I say it, fake,
Yeah.
you kind of have to play along a little bit.
Okay.
But the more authentic and direct and to the point they are, you can do the same.
Correct. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, any other questions? If not, we're going to wrap up in another minute or so. Please chime in, drop your questions in the chat, or unmute yourself. Sana, thank you. Do, 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 do.
Thank you,
Oh,
everybody. And of course, if you think of a question later, hopefully you can copy from the chat. My email address is right there. You're
mhm.
more than welcome to email me later on if you think of a question later.
Okay. Arjun, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I want to thank all of our guests as well. A round of applause. And again, we'll see you guys all tomorrow. Thank you so much, Arjun. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.